Hi all, thank you for joining us at ETRetail. This is a very special panel discussion on the occasion of International Women's Day. Today we have top women business leaders who have built, led, and scaled traditional businesses in India. Thank you panelists for joining us today. Wishing you all a very happy Women's Day. The theme of today's discussion is celebrating women in retail. Before we discuss the current environment and how we will see the future of women representation in the retail industry, I'd like to capture your journeys of growing to lead businesses. 10 to 15 years back, it was a rare phenomena of women leading businesses. How different was it back in the day, and what kind of challenges did you face? I'd like to start with Shruti on that note, if you'd like to share your journey with us.
Thanks, Pallavi, for having me here to share my journey. So my journey with Century started back in 2011, and my role here has largely been unconventional from the mattress industry point of view. Both the portfolios that I handle at Century, that is our exports, as well as our segment for child and baby mattresses, are something which the industry was never doing before. So from that point of view, my journey started with it needed a lot of passion. It needed a lot of conviction in my ideas because, as I said, the ideas were very unconventional. And to this day, I think it's the family support and the support of my spouse, as well as belief in my ideas, has led us to a point where exports, from being like a very small part of the portfolio, turned out Century is now one of the export house exporters now. So now, right now, when they say that one good thing leads to the other, when as a part of my training and as a part of growing and meeting international customers, I got to know about the best practices in the industry internationally. And that is when I understood how much focus world over is given to babies and children, and how their sleep solutions are entirely different. In fact, if you see through the world, you will find out that there are government regulations as well as the pediatric guidelines on where a baby and a child should sleep. But they say that there's something which needs to give you the final push. And for me, in my journey, my final push was my own pregnancy, which was when I realized that there are no good solutions for a baby or a child mattress. And that is how Beddy came into being. And I think my biggest challenge over the years has intrinsically been that, there are times when you have an idea which is not very conventional. And then there are these difficult times in there when you want to understand whether this is the right way, because it is your resources, your time, your company's resources that you're putting at stake there ultimately, right? So having the conviction to justify what you are doing is ultimately the biggest challenge that you need to fight for. Also, the second challenge that I feel that I have faced has been trying to balance my children and my career and doing something new when I'm already doing something else for the company. So balancing it all out, yes, has been a part of the challenge here.
Wonderful.
That's what I'd like to say for my journey.
Geetika, I'd like to ask you that you've built an entire category at Unilever for 18 years. And now at Hershey, you're the MD there. I want to see you, you've lived that journey for over 20 years. How has the landscape changed? And from building a business, from building a category to now leading an entire business, what's the difference? What challenges did you face? If you'd like to give us a brief there.
Yeah, thanks, Pallavi. So like you said, it's been 20 years. And 20 years ago, when I started, frankly, women in sales were really few and far between. So I joined Unilever. I was in sales, had a relatively tough market of Western UP. And I've had several interesting anecdotes to share, right? From, people kind of banging on my hotel door at 3 a.m. to, being shown a gun by a distributor that had gone to sack. So it has had its ups and downs, but I must admit, for me, all of these were learning experiences. And I think that's really what we gain. Unilever as an organization, I spent 18 years with, is an organization that put really safety first. So despite all of these, interesting anecdotes, I never felt unsafe. There was always a team around who I could reach out to in case of need. And also, if you look at, sometimes I feel we stand on the shoulder of giants. It's people ahead of us who really kind of paved the path. So Lena Nair, who's the global Chanel CEO now, used to be, HR at that point in time at Unilever. And, she was, always accessible to reach out for any help and support that I could have needed. So overall, I think it's been a journey with a lot of interesting spaces, a lot of learning, a lot of challenges, and it has morphed. And I think to your original point on how the landscape has changed, I think plenty. Like I said, it used to be earlier the sort where you wouldn't feel comfortable in sales, to now where, as at Hershey, when I'm leading the business here, we are trying to really kind of increase our workforce in the sales team. And for that, it has taken a lot of effort. It used to be in single digits, frontline sales. And a lot of my own experiences I'm using here to help move this business forward. For example, when I was in sales, I couldn't, it was tough. I wouldn't have literally a drop of water, because then I would need to use the bathroom, and there weren't accessible, facilities available. To now where we have done a tie-up with an app, which we have now installed in all our women leaders' phones, and they can then accessing where is the clean toilet at the closest clean toilet available. So we pay for it. We ensure that they kind of get the facilities and the support that we can provide as an ecosystem, so that they don't face the same challenges we faced 20 years ago. So yeah, that's from me.
Wonderful, wonderful. Shweta, if you'd like to add something to it.
Yeah, thanks, Pallavi, and thank you. I think Geetika and Shruti, as you shared, I think we all could have books and pages full of some of anecdotes and some of the journey. And I literally smiled, Geetika, when you said that when you go and meet distributors or partners in the extended system, it's not just about how you think about yourself, but it is them getting used to seeing some very, very you and I might be gender agnostic in our approach, but I think it's also the larger system which has evolved and started getting used to having business leaders from diverse backgrounds, and then one of them being the gender part of it, and the other also being from coming from where the background and the context of your own journey, right? So I have been a large part of my career has been completely about marketing and communication and brand work. And a few years back, when I moved into a general management role, which had more than equal measure of commercial and interfacing with the partner network or with the distributor network, and specifically in beverage alcohol in India, to have that kind of a representation, which now Diageo has, was quite a step change for a lot of people and for a lot of trade and a lot of partner ecosystem. So I always feel that the more role modeling and more you go out there and more you demonstrate those kind of behaviors, the longer it goes into normalizing diversity of every kind. So it's absolutely wonderful to have these conversations, to have these kind of forums where all of us can share our journeys, and it is very, very reassuring and also great referencing. Like Geetika shared, that there are people who we had who were leading from diverse fronts, and we could go back to them and use them as sounding boards. I think it is absolutely great that all of us can be those people now, where we can reach out to people who are starting their journey, or people who are wanting to do different things in their career, women who are choosing to be mothers, choosing to be professionals, and not it's about the and part of it and not the or part of it. And it's absolutely fantastic that we can all have these conversations and we can all lead each other into the choice making that we want to do.
Thank you, Shweta. That was a very beautiful thought to share. I'd also like to welcome Ms. Bector here. She has joined us. Thank you for joining us at this ETRetail discussion today.
My pleasure, Pallavi.
Thank you. We were talking how 10 to 15 years ago, it was a rare phenomena for women leading businesses. and you have played a very crucial role in making DLF retail what it is today. So if you'd like to, give us a brief throwback to your journey and what kind of challenges did you face?
Well, to start with, around 17 years when I joined DLF, I can tell you that I was just about the only woman in the firmament. And it's real estate is a tough space for women, be it retail or otherwise. It's a very tough space for women because you're sort of really looking at construction coordination on one side, you're looking at business end on the other side. So what we did over these 17 years is I've consciously done 2-3 steps. One is recruit people not on gender terms, but on really the merit that they bring to the table, with which what's happened is retail has now got over 25% women. Retail is to that, if you see globally, there's a lot of women leadership in retail, and I found that lacking. So over the years, that's what we have done. We've got a great gender parity, but my focus and target is to take it up to almost 40%, but we're getting there. That's one. The second is that, all these years, I've seen a change even in men. Earlier, women in power, their approach to women in power would be a little bit more, shall I say, skeptical, slightly deriding, and also in a way, not really taking you seriously. That changes. Yes, I think in India, it takes a little longer time, but it has changed. Now I see people accepting women in leadership roles more easily. They take people seriously. And also the men's approach to women in leadership position has changed. The boardroom share of voice has changed. And the journey may have been a little long, but when I look at the other countries, you go to the US, it's quite bad. I mean, women in leadership positions over there have it they don't really have a cozy spot. They do have issues that they face. I think Asian countries have evolved in a larger, trajectory, positive route when it comes to women in leadership roles. Overall, that's been my journey. My journey is not about making my journey the only journey. My journey, my way of leadership has been to take a lot of people along and also ensure that you inspire them, motivate them, and show them the path enough that they feel that, yes, we can. And last Women's Day and a couple of other Women's Day, what I've done is we conduct finance workshops for women within DLF, the entire DLF, all the women, on how they can control their own finances. You will be amazed to know that women may earn a lot, but when it comes to financial planning, they leave it to their husbands or spouse, their fiancés, etc. Now that has to change. They have to plan their own finances. They should know how to control it. They should have confidence in investing. So we are actually looking at changes at a radical level rather than just numbers.
Wonderful, wonderful. Those were some really good insights there. And Bharati, I'd like to come to you. Ms. Bector mentioned about representation of women in retail. You have worked across a varied set of companies. There's Paytm, there was Future Crop, and now it's Shopify. How do you see the representation of women across these different level of businesses?
Yeah, I think, Pallavi, let me start by saying thanks for having me here and listening to each one of the panel speakers, like moment of reflection on your own journey. I actually started my career at a top-tier consulting firm abroad. So for a while, I thought I wouldn't see that there were fewer women at work, but actually in my first year at work, in all of Asia Pac was the first partner promotion ever of a woman. And this is like 2006, right? So it quite surprised me. And from there on, I then went to work at a startup in India, where I was employee number 2. And I'm very completely by accident, to be honest, in retrospect, but we ended up being a women majority org because we were able to create a value prop for women doctors who were dropping out of work to come back and work in a far more flexible environment. And that's where I learned my first lessons on what it really takes to keep women at work once they're there, and to really have empathy for the various life stages they go through. All the way to today, where at Shopify, I was just preparing for this conversation, and I was really startled and pleasantly surprised to know that a majority entrepreneurs on Shopify are actually women. 53% of our merchants are women. And I hope that number continues to grow over time and stands testimony to how far we've come in the 15 years that I've been at work. And of course, there's more miles to go. I think in the world of retail itself, across my journey in both online and offline businesses, I have to say China actually opened my eyes to what an equitable women environment can be, perhaps because of the history of who they've been. There's really very little difference in gender in China. Even at Alibaba, where I worked briefly, there were actually almost equal women at work, which was really nice, and it created definitely an energy that was very different for me. I think what really has changed in the last 15 years is definitely role models. We look back, and I think many of us alluded to the fact that we've had trailblazers to look at and learn from, but also I feel I equally learn from the generation that's coming after us, the ones who've grown up in post-liberalization India, who have a lot more self-belief, dare I say, than I did when I started, who have grown up in a far more gender-neutral world in India itself. And they also show you how you can be and what you can do. So I do feel like when you're in the world of retail and you're learning, there's many things we can do better, but there's people you can learn from who are younger than you on their journey, and there's a lot more you can learn from people who've actually paved the way for you, right? And both are great teachers.
Okay. Wonderful insights there. Geetanjali, I'd like to come to you. And Tata Cliq positions itself in a category which has a lot of headroom for growth in terms of representation of women, from influencers to shop store, employees, to people working as brand owners, brand managers, right? With someone like you who is leading, a division, a business. So how do you see yourself, not just as a leader, but also as a leader for the women who might become future leaders, right? Want to capture your thought on that.
Thank you, Pallavi, and thank you for calling me here. So you're right. Actually, I have been quite lucky in my about 8.5 years working with Tata Cliq. I joined before the company started, and the kind of culture we built was almost a culture which was very inclusive. It's a very meritocratic organization. So I, in my journey, never really felt that being a woman was a negative, or it was something holding me back. And that's a culture which has grown. So today, if we look at our, Mancom members, 3 people are women. Even in my team, most of the HODs are actually women. In fact, right before this discussion, I was reflecting that there are 4 or 5 directors under me who are women leaders, and, they can all participate in this panel discussion. The interesting thing about Tata Cliq Luxury has been, and I think which has really helped us, is that we are also a young organization. So frankly, my journey, I feel that I grappled with being a woman leader as well as being slightly younger when I looked at counterparts in brands, etc. And what really helped was the training which the organization gave, right? So within Tata Group, there were a lot of workshops which really taught women as how to build self-confidence. There's a lot of, imposter syndrome, which really runs deep amongst women. In fact, if we read about books, if we read about Lean In, for example, the Sheryl Sandberg wrote, she talks about the imposter syndrome she herself had, being the CEO of Facebook, right? And when you read about these people, you realize that you're not alone, and that slowly gives you the tools to, be assertive, take a seat at the table. So she really, one example I really think, and that's coming to your question, I tell all the women leaders in my team that don't hold yourself back. So if there's a, boardroom meeting, or if there's a large conference happening, if it's an empty room and you walk in, you'll see that women will take the seat at the back and men will go and sit in the front, right? That's natural. Men will put themselves out. And it's been proven research after research. So we urge that, women, and there are enough role models in Tata Cliq Luxury where they're seeing women leaders out leading businesses, that support other women leaders. Don't be afraid of being assertive, of claiming, and always gun for a position which is slightly above, right? So women always tend to, when women will apply for a job, they will apply when they feel they're 120% ready. Men apply when they are 80% ready. And that's the mindset change you have to do. That's pretty much it. I think we are all leading by examples, and it's all been enabled by, of course, the leaders who came before us.
Okay, wonderful. Shruti, I'd like to ask you there, as the next set of generation comes in, who will lead businesses now, how do you see, bringing them to the forefront? What do you think you can contribute? How are you, contributing to that?
I feel we as a generation have seen the good of both the new world as well as the values of the old world. So, those old values where the focus was always on ensuring that you are doing a good job, you are producing things that are of high quality, and that you are going to go to bed with a good night's sleep, right? Those old values are what I treasure a lot. And I think the adaptation which the younger generation has, the one of, there are with oncoming digitization, there is a change every 2 years. So we are learning something new and adapting continuously. So for the future generation to come, ideally, I think I would like to pass on both the values, the ones which are more traditional of, focus on good quality, as well as the adaptation which the younger generation teaches us.
Okay, wonderful. Shweta, you work in a category which is very less presented overall, and the representation of women, I think, is even less, right? So what do you think companies can do there? What is that key challenge?
So I think, yeah, the whole context of something like this and categories like the one that I represent, which is beverage alcohol, is actually we may not be seeing it like that, but it is very much rooted in experiences, right? Into human experiences. Our whole philosophy of Diageo is celebrating life every day, everywhere, right? So I would begin by saying that a lot of normalization of a category is also a reflection of how our larger cultural context is kind of evolving. And I think the way all of us in the leadership team in Diageo have, wore it on our sleeves. So we have an amazingly diverse leadership team, not just globally, but in India, right? We have more than 50% representation of women. I mean, I run a team which is based in various parts of the country, and it is plus 60% women in that team, right? In a category which otherwise has a perception that is very traditional, and we don't have diverse representation. And more than just the fact that we have in my team we have more than 60% women, we also have a very healthy mix of past experience cohorts, right? From e-commerce to lifestyle to CPG to banking or various diverse categories. And I personally have always championed this whole piece around inclusion of diversity. So that's how I define it, that, however diverse energies that a team or a leadership team brings in, I think what comes out of that is a value multiplier, which is many times than having sameness or sameness of views and energies. So that's one point. The second one is that and I think Geetanjali and Shruti both spoke about our corporate, or if you are a organization which is very further away or ahead on the journey of diversity and inclusion, which Diageo globally is. I mean, we have equal parenting policy for years altogether now, which has been a fairly recent kind of phenomenon. And we have an amazing menopause support group in our global system as well. And we were the first ones who went out by walking the talk in even the way we represent our brands. Right from the iconic Johnny Walker and many partnerships and many platforms and voices that that the brand itself has spoken with is amazing inspiration for all of us who lead in that category, and to something like training and support group that we form to the bartender community. We have a community called the Hive, which has empowered women in India, even in a market like India, to come get trained into various aspects of hospitality and specifically on bartending, and how it has opened up a career opportunity or option, even in tier 2 or tier 3 towns for otherwise a non-operating option a few years back. So I feel that many of us who spoke about how we all need to become enablers. I think organizations which have hugely committed to creating a culture of inclusivity and having women on boards or having women across the spectrum of the organization continue to set examples for others to refer to. And I think Diageo is really personally for me, it's been such a big enabler to be in Diageo after having seen the spirits and alcohol world for many years before as well. It's hugely empowering, honestly, at an individual level and the collective level.
That's wonderful. Very heartening to hear that. Geetika, I'd like to come to you. While I was looking for people to, interview, right, in the FMCG category, it was very difficult to find women leaders who are leading the brands, right? And yours was one of the names that just popped, right on my head that, okay, we have to get Geetika on board. In FMCG businesses, I've seen that women are leading divisions, right? But not the entire businesses, which you have managed to crack. What would be your thought on that? And how do you see what's the challenge, right, there? How will you motivate women to actually come on board?
Firstly, thanks, Pallavi, for such generous compliments. So I think just to maybe even go a little further, which is Hershey US, the parent company, has a woman CEO. So Michelle Buck is our global CEO, and it is also a little sad that of the Fortune 500 companies, only 53 of them have women CEOs. So I think that is clearly an area that we need to do a lot more on for it to be genuinely an inclusive world where we are fully representing the population. The idea of diversity for me is just to ensure that there is representation of how we are. Of course, gender being the first and primary step towards it, but there is a lot more, and therefore every kind of difference in our population must be rightfully represented in our teams as well. From an India lens, so yes, I lead the Hershey business. We have a 43% diversity in our, in our leadership team, and by diversity I mean gender. But if I look at other diversities, it's huge, right? I mean, in fact, in our boardrooms, we can't have a conversation other than in English because nobody has a common mother tongue. Everybody speaks a different language, so English is then that common denominator. How do we get more women into leadership positions? I think consciously what we do in Hershey is a future CEO program. So we run this for women where we provide them the access to skills, to expertise, to mentorship, where women leaders in Hershey across the world really provide mentorship to other women to really help them kind of pave the path for their progress and success. I think it works beautifully for a reverse mentorship as well, because we learn then as much from people, from women across the company. So I think the most important thing for us to ensure women in leadership positions would be to provide them access to skills, to mentor them, and then to in turn relearn back on what more we could do differently.
Okay, wonderful there. Ms. Bector, I'd like to ask you, how do you envision the future of women at work and the community at large?
Well, I'm very optimistic because the signs are extremely good. The growth signs are very good. One of the things that happened during COVID, which is a positive impact, is hybrid work culture has been accepted as a norm. Now, this is going to actually be very favorable for women, especially after their maternity leave, in case they want to on a few days, during that first year of your childbirth, things can go a little haywire. And it'll be great if companies now accept hybrid as a way of work and not wanting to lose talent. We will firstly stop losing talent, from the workforce. That's the first thing that I see as a plus. The second is that the number of people who are coming into the workforce are also people with a very clear mindset, be it men or women. Men who are accepting of the fact that it's going to be a diverse work environment, and women who are accepting of the fact that, yes, there are challenges, but it's not unsurmountable. So with that, I believe that the future is one in which it's going to get a little bit more mature. And I always say I crave for the day that we don't need Women's Day to celebrate women in leadership positions. It should be the law of averages. It should be something that is accepted. And so that we look at a more equal, true equal world. And today it's not just about gender, as Geetika rightly mentioned. There are, gender neutrality is something that people are talking about. So acceptance in the workforce of varying kind of people and their views and their aspirations is the way forward. And I think that India is taking the right steps forward. I see in the urban world, and also in tier 2, tier 3 cities, it's very, very good to see the number of women coming out there. South has taken the lead, at a national level. There were these researches done. Clearly, South is ahead of the game. The women over there are not just inclusive, they're also in good leadership positions. There have been multiple tech companies who have boasted of very senior position leaders who are women. And also the number of working women in the South is more than in the north of India. We may think otherwise, but the data speaks so. So I think overall, I would look at India is on the right path when it comes to looking at women in leadership positions. But what we need to do is, I always remember, and I want to share this anecdote, when Ms. Sitaraman became the finance minister, the number of men who used to joke about it, create memes about it, was not funny. And it was not to do with the fact that she was from a political party. It was to do with the fact that she was a woman. And hence, how can she be a finance minister? Well, it's her 4th budget in the running. And I think she has proven that, she can take finance ministry with aplomb, and really the kind of, the kind of schemes that she's come about, and the way the COVID was tackled, GST was tackled in its implementation during COVID, shows that it's gender neutral. At the end of the day, whichever category of business you are in, be it finance, architecture, construction, retail, banking, it's about the person and it is not about the gender.
Okay, wonderful. Bharati, I'd like to come to you and get your thoughts on the same. How do you see the future of women at work?
Honestly, having probably done these for a few years now, I feel very, very positive. And I feel like we know the magic secret sauce, right? We just have to do more of the same. And we have to do a lot more of it. I like to think of this in 3 steps, at least at work, in terms of what I can do. At the time of recruiting, how are we increasing the pool of people we meet? Are each of us willing to wait that extra week, that extra month to meet more women candidates and bring them into the company, right? So there's more women at work, and then they hire more women, and so on and so forth. And then when you're at the workplace, how do you keep this flexibility that we've all tasted during COVID going and really help women through the various stages they go through, right? Like when they settle into a new life after marriage. We talk about maternity all the time, but there's so many other stages, as their parents and in-laws grow older, women become primary caregivers for the elderly at home, and they need flexibility at that time too. And then the coaching they get at work, having compensation conversations, the mentoring they get, and equally sensitizing men as more women can come into work on how they need to respond, calling bad behavior, and not with the intention of insulting someone, but with really setting an example for what work could look like, right? And the third, actually, I find most important, Pallavi, which is after work. I think women naturally do not network enough. They don't step out enough. Many of their professional relationships are at the current workplace where they are. So for me, it's very important to make a conscious effort to meet women who I have worked with before, who I could potentially work with tomorrow, have a coffee, have a dinner, get a drink, and really make the effort to sort of have informal professional relationships outside of work. So I feel like if each of us could wake up every day and do something at each of the stage, then we just create a more inclusive environment naturally.
Absolutely, Bharati. I love that you brought the non-maternity side of plethora of life stages and issues. It's fantastic. It's not spoken about. It's not represented enough. But there is so much more going on other than us, all of us going away for maternity and coming back.
Yeah, I feel like we reduce it to this one stage in a woman's life, which is going to drop off a cliff. Actually, there are many more, and we better watch out for those as well.
Wonderful, wonderful. Geetanjali, your thoughts there, and Bharati mentioned about non-professional relationships as well after, post-work relationships. And I think the younger generation, they're really breaking the barrier there. And you work closely with a very young team there, right? So what are you observing in your experience there?
Actually, absolutely echo everybody's thoughts here. I also really believe that the future is very bright. In fact, if you speak to the younger people now, I think this inhibition or this, feeling that, maybe you don't have an equal chance is much lesser. They're coming into a world where there is more equal opportunity. So I feel that that itself is a huge plus. They are seeing so many more examples of people like them, women leaders in meeting rooms, in boardrooms, in conference rooms. So I think that inherent bias or inherent underconfidence itself is kind of reducing. And along with all the hybrid working, with more women entering workforce, it's very positive. I think one more thing which Bharati touched upon, and this is something I have really seen in the last 5-6 years, are the number of women founders, right? So we also have something called Indie Lux, where we work with a lot of luxury homegrown brands. And there's so many women, either group of friends or people who kind of got together because they had a vision, who have built these beautiful brands, and they're really changing the way you look at entrepreneurship, right? And they're employing more women, they're employing craftsmen. So there is so much which women today are contributing to the economy. I think it's all positive and upwards from here. I do believe that hopefully in a decade or so, these kind of conversations would perhaps evolve, because it will no longer be about, women empowerment or more women in leadership positions. Maybe that it would be a law of averages, as someone said.
Wonderful. On that note, I'd like to get a closing comment from you all. We'll start with Shweta. If you have to describe the future of women at work in one word, what's the first word that comes to your mind?
That we will all be having a panel or a discussion which does not have women leaders, it just has leaders, and there is like a brand life stage. I think this is the stage where we need more and more of these conversations. But if I look future back, I want men, women, binary, non-binary, the whole conversation to be on the same level as any other normalized be it in our lives.
And that's beautiful. I really echo that thought. Shruti, how would you describe it in one word?
I would say, in fact, I believe that this is the best time for any woman to be in business, and that too particularly in India. We are in a country where, 30 years back, we had a woman prime minister. Today, we have had 2 female presidents, and one of my co-panelists just spoke about Mrs. Nirmala Sitharaman and what a phenomenal job she's done. It's an extremely positive environment, and like Geetanjali also pointed out just a few minutes back, that, that thought of not having confidence or not being able to put yourself out there, or your thoughts not being heard just because, woman is not there. Women are doing phenomenal job now. And as a country, I believe that Indian women are capable of so much more, because for us, we have that knack of balancing our lives. Like how Bharati pointed out, that there are so many, I'm sorry, I overlooked that aspect of, our journey at every level. But yeah, so wisely pointed out that yes, it is so important for us. And we naturally have that knack of taking care of ourselves, our children, our family, as well as our businesses beautifully. So I think it's the best time to be in business in India right now as a woman.
Wonderful. Geetika, your thoughts on that?
If I had to say it in one word, I would say that word is Hershey, because that actually includes her and she, and somewhere we believe that, we're consciously doing projects to ensure that we bring the invisible visible. We bring this her and she, which is invisible within Hershey's, really to the fore. So we celebrate women with diverse backgrounds. We ensure that we give them opportunities to come forth. So yeah, I think I would just say Hershey would be the way I would like to ensure that we get diverse backgrounds, we get, equality and inclusion as was being discussed, and just ensure that, we never make women feel that they're here because they're women. I think that's the biggest disservice we can do, which is, make them feel inadequate, that you've got this role or being, this position because you're a woman. So the moment this conversation is normalized, then they're here because of their merit. And that is really, truly the ideal.
Wonderful, wonderful. Bharati, your thoughts?
For me, that one word is necessary. Women at work are necessary, essential, natural state of being, and the only way to build a nation that is truly glorious. So I hope that 10 years from now, this is not a conversation of choice at all. It should be something that is par for the course.
Great, great. Geetanjali?
I think for me, it would be zero stereotypes. So I hope that the future would not involve a particular gender or a particular age or any particular caste or religion to come with some sort of a baggage of how, that role is supposed to behave. I think we'll just look at genders very differently, and some of the, expected behaviors will not be expected because young people will just not be exposed to it, right? So just the way today we don't expect women to quit work after getting married, it's just nobody expects that anymore. I think these kind of stereotypes will definitely change.
Yeah, wonderful. Let's really hope for that. And thank you so much again, everyone, for taking out time for this. To sum it up, I'll just say, I hope that the community strives and thrives, and we going forward celebrate leaders and not, on a gender basis. Great. Thank you again for joining us today at ETRetail.